Ready? You do something here.
Well, hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here for Rebel News. What a delight to be back in the chair of our weekly live stream. Actually, we're doing it more than once a week. The live streaming has been something we've been playing with for a few years. I actually used to do it every day during the depths of the lockdown. So it's a pleasure to be back. We've changed it up a little bit. And today we have a theme to it. We have folks out on the ground in different parts of Canada for what we call the Million March for Children. That's not what we call it. That's what the organizers call it. And it's really about protecting kids from transgender extremists in schools. What a weird thing to say. I tell you, go back in time 20 years and you said, we're going to have a march. It's going to be very controversial because there are transvestites and drag queens going into schools doing shocking things. And even more shocking is what's happening on a regular basis. These sexuality clubs where kids join. It's a secret from parents. We talk about changing their name from boy names to girl names and girl names to boy names and changing their gender identity, and then medicine and surgery to do the sex change surgery, and all of it kept secret from parents. If you would have said that 20 years ago, people would have sort of laughed and said, I don't believe that. I wouldn't even see that as a work of fiction. That's where we are today, folks. And in fact, if you oppose the sexualization of children, you are the one who is called names. Here's some imagery from Parliament Hill, where Alexa Lavoie is on the ground today. Is there any audio on that clip we're looking at there, or is it just imagery of the protesters? All right. I think that our friend Alexa will, in fact, be joining us live in just a couple minutes. So she'll tell us how it's going in Ottawa. We have other reporters in other cities further west. And so those protests haven't begun in earnest yet. Of course, with our large country, there's different time zones, things are staggered. But we did have a whole team go down to the protest in Toronto. And I have to tell you, I just heard a very quick report from our head videographer, video editor boss, Efron, who just got back from there. He said it was a very small group of pro-parent, pro-children protesters. I think he said there were only 10. But he said those 10 pro-family protesters were surrounded by dozens of Antifa counter-protesters, including Fred Hahn, the clownish public sector union boss who has been in a lot of hot water this past year for his full-throated support of Hamas. And what was advertised as a million march for kids, well, in Toronto, it was only 999,990 short. The trans folks were there. The Antifa folks were there. When they see Rebel News, they freak out. And without further ado, I'd like to show you a little bit more. I'd like to show you two things. Olivia, tell me what visuals. Oh, look at that. Yeah, look at that. That's their counter protest. F off. And of course, they're like, look at that person holding the F off sign on the one side there. Of course, they're masked. I think that's a keffiyeh on the other side there. So they're masking, obviously, for a little bit of intimidation and because they think if they're going, yeah, like that guy there. Why is he masking? He's masking because if he gets into some illegal conduct, he wants it to be harder to be identified, obviously. So as you can see, not a lot of people actually caring, people just going by. There's a few dozen counter protesters, some police in evidence. Not a large thing, but I'm really glad they were there, our people rather. I'm glad we sent our reporters. Yeah, just passersby saying what's going on. Do we have, Olivia, do we have footage of either our interaction with Fred Hahn or, yeah, we do. Okay, and then I'll ask you about the truck. So Fred Hahn was there, and our friend David Menzies went up to him. And are we ready for that, or do you need a few more minutes for that?
Mr. Hahn, how you doing today?
Comes together, give them what they need.
I'm not talking to you, sir. You're in my way.
No, I'm not.
I'm also not
Mr.
talking
Hahn?
to you.
No? No. Mr. Hahn, given your sexual orientation,
You don't even see the pin in these eyes. You want me to stay silent?
I think it's hard to hear that. Now, I think we're going off the video of the camera instead of David Menzies' audio. So we were going off the audio of the camera instead of the audio he was holding. Can we see if we can get a better version of that? Because that was just too hard to hear. But let me give it away. We asked him, are you worried about your beeper exploding? Which I think is a pretty funny thing to ask, given that the beepers that he's exploding are referring to beepers that were the new low-tech mode of communication that the Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon were using because they thought that the Israelis could track and hack and attack their smartphones. So they went low-tech to beepers. But the crazy thing there is it turns out Israel managed to intercept the beepers, put a little explosive in each one of them, and then a couple of days ago detonated thousands of these beepers simultaneously by sending a message to all the Hezbollah people with these phones. They would open them up and push a button, and that button was actually a detonation. Just an absolute James Bond, Jason Bourne moment. So we wanted to know if Fred Hahn was nervous about his beeper. He, for some reason, declined to answer it. So let's get a version of that with better audio. Is Alexa ready in Ottawa to do a little report from on the ground? We're working on that. Okay, so you can let me know when we're ready to do that. Well, let me tell you some of the other stuff that's on my radar screen. Yesterday, you may have heard that the Federal Court of Canada ruled against Rebel News and upheld a political committee at the Canada Revenue Agency, handpicked by Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau appointed this committee, so it's not that surprising what their outcome is. Handpicked committee declining Rebel News' application to get the QCJO news license. QCJO stands for Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, and it's an unheard of thing in the free world. I mean, we have never had a journalism license in Canada ever in our history. But you can read it right here: to be designated as a qualified Canadian journalism organization. An organization is required to meet the criteria set out in the Income Tax Act. For more information on those criteria, click here. So we do meet the criteria set out in the Income Tax Act. Maybe click on it there if it shows you what the criteria are, or maybe that just takes you to the law itself. That takes you to the entire Income Tax Act. Don't worry about it. I'll tell you what the criteria are. Are you Canadian owned? Do you have two or more people? Is it an arm's length thing? Are you doing general interest news as opposed to just like the Costco magazine or something? So we easily check the boxes. Like, it's so easy to meet the test for a Canadian journalism organization. But so it won't surprise you that 99% of Canadian journalists meet the test, and we meet the test too. But they stalled for a year, and they chewed it over and came up with a bizarre excuse. Their excuse for not granting us the QCJO status was claiming that only 1% of what we do is news, which is insane and absurd. And by the way, in case you're thinking, well, you do opinion journalism, that's counted as news journalism under the law. That is absolutely acceptable. Not only in real life is a columnist a journalist, but the Income Tax Act says that's fine. So they had to come up with such bizarre reasons to deny us the obvious, which is, of course, we're a journalism organization. What do you think we are? Like, we don't talk about the weather. We don't talk about sports. We don't do sort of soft feature items like here's a doggy on a skateboard. We talk about news. That's sort of all we do. Anyways, we'll come back to that because I see our friend Alexa Lavoie is now on standby, crystal clear from Ottawa, Parliament Hill. What a delight to go to her now. Alexa, great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us what the mood is like in Ottawa. I have to say, in Toronto, it was a very, very small protest and a much larger counter protest. Tell me the breakdown behind you. How many people are sort of with the pro-family side, and how many are against that, let's say, on the Antifa side?
The counter protest just came in and left after their march, but a couple of them left. There are still maybe 4 of them here. There were massive counter protests, I would say, massive one. I would say that I'm pretty surprised of the number today. It is a really, really smaller crowd than last year, and a lot of people are surprised. But some of them mentioned that it's mostly because of the conflicts that happened on October 7th. There is a lot of people who don't really want to risk to be here and be called a different name, probably. But there is maybe like about 100 person on the hill. We had Pastor Henry and Hildebrand, and we had the other good speaker that delivered some speech this morning.
Sure, we know Pastor Henry Hildebrand. He's great. You know, you make a very important point because I remember last year when there was the Million March for Kids, there were actually a lot of Muslim Canadians there. I'm not going to say half, but it was a significant number, and it was interesting to see common cause between Christians, Jews, and Muslims. It was sort of a harmonious thing, which was very interesting. And now, I don't know, maybe the Muslim community doesn't want to come. Maybe they would bring their Gaza flags, and that would sort of conflict with the message. So I think and Ottawa has had some sort of rough protests too because of the Hamas folks. Isn't that interesting? So you say there's only would you say there's about 50 people behind you still?
About 50 people. But I was there in Montreal last year, and I would say like the Muslim community was in majority. And today I would say I saw maybe 3-4 of them. That's it. Mostly Christian, mostly like concerned parents, mostly I would say just people who are concerned about the health of their children.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say there was a very large counter protest that marched by. How many people do you think were in that? And I think we might have some imagery of that you sent over earlier. So why don't you tell us about it while we look at, we're looking right now. It looks like a fair-sized counter protest. The usual suspects, Antifa, left-wing groups, lots of police. Looks like there was a lot of cops. Tell us a little bit more about the counter protest.
There were about 40, or I would say 40, or maybe 50, but around that number. All masked, fully masked, all screaming and yelling fascist and bigot to the other group. They were pretty aggressive, violent as usual. We can see that there is no possibility to engage with them. And by the way, a lot of them are kind of really happy that we don't get, that the court refuse us to have like the tax refund for the journalist quality license.
Right,
of
really?
Trudeau.
So they've been following Rebel News very closely because that's very interesting that they're that attentive to our legal battles. It doesn't surprise me one bit they support censorship. Very interesting. So they came up to you and sort of taunted you, I take it.
A lot of them, they were just yelling that at me. Oh, you're not real journalists, the court have ruled it. And I'm just like, what are you talking? They are just trying to suppress the narrative they don't like. And you don't really see it.
Yeah. Well, I know who funds us. And the short answer is thousands of ordinary people. The average donation to Rebel News through crowdfunding is about $58. Those protesters who were mocking the pro-family groups and mocking you, they're paid also, but they're paid by big labor unions. They're paid by government grants. And of course, if they're pro-Hamas, odds are they're paid by Iran. We understand there are 700 paid agents of the Iranian government operating in Canada. So don't take it badly that they're laughing at us. We have legitimacy and they are fake. They are astroturf, not real grass. They are paid protesters. We're there working to support our viewers. Well, I'm a little bit disappointed in the numbers. It's very far from 1 million, but I think the cause is a good one to give parents information and give them authority over their own kids. Any last words from you, Alexa? I'm glad you went there. I'm glad you went from Montreal to Ottawa. Was there any other thing you saw that was interesting you want to tell us?
Well, first of all, conquer and divide and conquer. This is what we need to remember, because the last last edition of 1 Million March for Children happened in September 2023, if I remember correctly. And suddenly, months after, we had like this massive war that divided lots of Canadians in two big clash. And now we are saying that Canadians are not coming together with the simple common cause that are children. Children should be the main priority, what is happening next to it. I think a lot of people should have like come Same if they disagree on something.
Well, Alexa, thank you very much for making the journey from Montreal to Ottawa. And Rebel News is covering this event in, I think, 4 different cities today. And we'll tell you the honest news, which is a lot of the air has gone out of the balloon. What was a huge movement last year is a small, tiny movement even this year. And I agree with you, Alexa. I think in a strange way, the war in the Middle East has affected it, because a lot of the energy in this pro-parent march last year was from Muslim Canadians. That was very evident. I'm glad you're there finding out the facts for us. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Well, that's Alexa Lavoie, one of our favorite people. She flies the flag for us in Montreal, and of course, Ottawa is only about an hour and a half away. Isn't that interesting, eh? I got a lot of, and the thing about the live streams is you got to stay organized, because there's a lot going on. We have some live feeds like that. We have a lot of things I want to throw to. We even have some ads that I'd like to read. We have a very special sponsor called Freedom Chat. And it's something I was thinking about, because I was down in Brazil about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you know that. I went down just for 36 hours to the giant city of Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo, obviously I'd never been there before. 20 million people in the greater Sao Paulo area. 20 million. Maybe tied with Mexico Mexico City for the largest cities in the Americas. Like, just enormous. And the rally was enormous too. 200,000 people came out to protest for free speech, because an out-of-control activist judge named Alexandre de Moraes was banning so many individual people on Twitter, and Twitter said, "You're doing this illegally. We're not going to comply." So de Moraes just banned the whole app. 20 million users of Twitter, they were just all shut out. So people started getting on there using a VPN. I'll come back to that ad in a moment, because I want to read it to you. First, look at this video mashup between Justin Trudeau. I'm going to come back to that Freedom Chat ad in a minute. Give me just 1 second. But I want to show you a funny thing first. It's out of the corner of my eye. I just want to, you know what? I'll do the Freedom Chat ad now, and then I'll go to the funny thing. And yeah, to finish my story from Sao Paulo, how do you get around the government? How do you get around the government when they're banning you, when they're censoring you, when they're shutting down apps, when they're, even Telegram, which is a very popular and powerful app, it's not totally secure, because all the data is uploaded to Telegram servers. It's not like Signal, just in the hands of the users. So let me read to you our very special ad from our very special sponsor. Here goes. Let me ask you a question. How many of you are concerned that your privacy is being attacked by the radical left? Well, I am, but not just from the radical left, just from every busybody. The deep state, including the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on their political affiliation. That's why we've partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that, like us, believes privacy is a fundamental human right. We already mentioned this app once before, and we're going to continue to talk about it and use it. Freedom Chat offers true end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection to ensure that no one can screenshot your conversations, no storage of messages on their servers. That's the difference I'm mentioning between them and Telegram. And no commercial use of user data. This is the app that we trust, and it's the app our families rely on, especially as we approach the election. Some people will stop at nothing to maintain power, making privacy protection more important than ever. I think that's very true. You can download the app right now by going to freedomchat.com/Rebel News. We're such a fan of Freedom Chat that we've created our own channel at Rebel News, which you can subscribe to for exclusive content, including never before seen images, videos, and posts. Simply download the app, search for our channel at Rebel News, and subscribe. No one can see the channels that you're subscribed to or the posts you react to. It's your own private news feed. That's a good idea. If you're on Android, you can scan the QR code on your screen and subscribe to the waitlist, or go to freedomchat.com/Rebel News. Again, download the app today and subscribe to our channel at Rebel News for exclusive posts and never before seen content. We've already posted a few times on our channel, going to continue to post. So make sure that you go download the app and subscribe, speak freely, and message privately with Freedom Chat. I think that's a really good idea because people can screen chat other apps like Signal. And on Twitter, people can see who you follow, so you can be susceptible to cancel culture. These folks have obviously really thought it through. I think that's pretty exciting. Anyways, so I tell you, they sure could use Freedom Chat in Brazil, because a judge has shut down Twitter. And even if you try and get on Twitter using a VPN, there's a $9,000 fine. Now, when I was in Sao Paulo, I was using a VPN, and I managed to get around the system. I didn't know about Freedom Chat when I was down there, but that would have been obviously a very secure alternative to just surfing around the internet. All right. Before I read that, I was talking about this funny mashup. Did you see I'm just switching around. I'm jumping around. I'm a little distracted today. Parliament resumed this week, and it's just a mess. And there was a video that Justin Trudeau filmed of himself. He had his personal videographer film it, of course. And I think it was supposed to look energetic and positive and a man in command, and he's the center of the world, and he's walking through a hallway. He says hi to that guy, hi to that guy. This guy hands him a binder right on schedule. Like it's a really choreographed thing designed to make him look like the man with the plan. But watch his face. Look carefully at his face, because the eyes don't lie, do they? And it's very hard to smile if you don't mean it. Like there's a real smile. You can tell when someone's having a real laugh. Like there's a certain, but when someone's forcing it, you can tell. Take a look at this guy and tell me if he's not faking it. And we've mashed it up with that funny old movie by Jim Carrey called Liar, Liar, when Jim Carrey comes into his law firm office and he's doing the same sort of power walk. Hey, how you doing? Hey, you look great. Hey, like he's just going through and he's just a total BSer. And it was actually Gavin McInnes that gave me the idea for this video. And he said he thinks that Justin Trudeau was inspired to do this video by the movie Liar, Liar, but he forgot about where the idea came from. And so he forgot about its negative connotations about a guy just who's a total BSer and liar. And let's watch the thing. I've talked about it longer than the whole clip is. Take a look. Tell me what you think of this.
Ready? Did you do something to your hair?
It's a bit extreme, isn't it?
No, I mean, that's a thing nowadays.
See you.
Hey, Pete, you losing a little weight?
I don't know. Maybe.
Looks and personality, a double threat guy.
How you doing?
Good stuff.
Hey, Mr. Reed.
Hey, man.
It's Randy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. See, taking lunch orders, Mr. Reed. Anything?
No, thanks. Had so much for breakfast, I'm just about ready to pop. I mean, I'm full.
Let's go.
I think that's a fun mashup. I think that, you heard the phrase, it was a phrase that the media used to talk about Donald Trump a lot. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. How many times did you hear that? And I don't think the walls ever were closing in on Donald Trump. I think it's just the media was projecting that they were and hoping that they were. I have no doubt that there were many times when Donald Trump felt great stress, but the walls were never closing in on him. They never laid a glove on him. I mean, yeah, there were some trumped up fake charges, like that bizarre case where what was that woman's name? E. Carol something. You know that woman, Olivia, who claimed that Donald Trump molested her. The court said there's no evidence of it, but the fact that Trump denied it was defamation. Remember that crazy story? Can you find for me the clip of her talking to CNN's Anderson Cooper, where she gets super crazy and he looks at her like, oh my God, you are a sociopath. Just type in Anderson Cooper and E. Carroll, whatever her last name was. I want to show you how crazy it is because, yes, there were some legal knocks on Donald Trump. Absolutely. He was convicted of that and he lost this. But I don't think there's an independent legal observer or legal scholar in the world who would say, yeah, those are all legitimate cases. Even the porn star who got a payment, sort of a hush money payment to shut her up. An accounting question that predates his presidency, how that becomes a criminal investigation like decades later. Like, where's the legal theory there? It's just so absurd. And the left would say the walls are closing in. Yeah, I think you found it there where if you search for on Twitter, you'll find the moment because it's so insane where they're about to go to commercial, Olivia. And so if you search on Twitter, you're more likely to find the super quick version. Anyways, they've been saying about Donald Trump for about 10 years now, the walls are closing in. The walls are closing in. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe that's just yeah, you found it. Here, let's just take a quick look. Here's the lady that made the devastating accusations against Donald Trump. Here she is with Anderson Cooper, who had her on to sort of promote her anti-Trumpism, and then halfway through he thought, "What have I done?" Here, take a look.
Don't feel like a victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Oh.
Holy mackerel. Like, I think most people, she just said she thinks most people think rape is sexy and they have fantasies about rape. And like and her story tracked, I think, some Law and Order TV show narrative. So that's the accuser who beat Trump in court. And in that moment there, Anderson Cooper, you could, he's a man of the left, but he's got enough integrity. You could just see it on his face. What have I done? My point there before I went on that little tangent was that, no, I don't think the walls were closing in on Donald Trump. The guy still has enormous multi-thousand, tens of thousands of people rallies. He's either tied in the polls or ahead, despite 10 years of fake news against him. The guy who really has the world closing in on him is Justin Trudeau. He lost on Monday one of the safest seats in liberaldom, a riding in Montreal called La Salle-Verdun, which is where David Lametti, the former justice minister, was before he resigned in disgrace. And before that, it was Paul Martin, the former Liberal prime minister. Like, that is as much the Liberal heartland as Calgary Southwest is for the Conservative Party. If you're not winning La Salle-Verdun, you're not winning in 90% of the ridings in Canada. And obviously they got slaughtered in the Manitoba by-election. I think they got less than 5% of the vote there. Like, they're a fringe party in the West. And before that, you might remember a couple of months ago, the Liberals lost a super safe seat in Toronto. The Conservatives picked it up. And I think it was called Toronto St. Paul's, if I'm going from memory. So there's not a single Liberal MP in Toronto who's a sure thing. They're going to win a few. But I live in the riding of York Centre. There's no chance that Yarosak's going to be reelected again. No chance. She's going to be slaughtered. And all the backbenchers who are happy to clap along because the best job of their life and lots of power and lots of corruption and graft, and they just have to be loyal and keep their mouth shut. Well, now they feel like they're going to lose. If a by-election in Montreal and Toronto will lose, Are they not at risk? Of course they are. Now, I understand that by-elections are an opportunity for people to clap back at the government because they're just altering one district. It's not like they're saying, well, I don't want to have this whole country switch sides. But if you look at all the polling, Canadians have decided to throw out Justin Trudeau, and they've decided to go with Pierre Poilievre. I don't know if you saw my show the other day, but I went through the latest Abacus poll. Abacus leans towards the Liberal Party. They have some affiliations with senior Liberals, so I trust them when they say bad news about the Liberal Party. I don't want to be lied to by a conservative-leaning pollster. I'd rather know the brutal truth, which is why I favor Abacus polls, because I know they're not doing any favors to the Conservatives. They had a poll the other day where there was a great question. They asked people, well, how solid, how sure are you're going to stick with your vote? 67% of conservative voters said there's no chance they'll change. No chance. So the number was approximately that much. I'm going from memory here. And another 20 or 30% said it's very unlikely. Like, people are done with Trudeau. They're not listening. Yeah, thank you very much. Put that up there. It was 62%, not 67%. Thank you for the reminder. And another 32% say, yeah, it's unlikely I'll change my mind. So look at that. That means 94% of conservative supporters are either no chance. Like, look at that. I will vote conservative no matter what happens. No matter what happens. And another 32 say, I could change my mind, but it's unlikely. Only 6% say, I could probably change my mind. And I don't know if you could see it. It's on the right-hand side there, about 2/3 of the way down. You see it says male and female. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. That's the 67% number that was stuck in my head. 67% of women who support Poilievre say, I will never change my mind. Is that not, have you ever seen female support for the Conservative stronger than male support? I'm 53 years old. I've been following politics since I was a teenager. I have never seen a poll before that shows women are more adamantly conservative than men. Have you? I don't think you have. So yeah, it's not looking good for Justin Trudeau. And, when you feel burned by someone, you no longer even read their emails. You no longer even listen to them. When you look at them, you start to hate little things like, can you give me the video meme of that couple on a therapist's couch where she says, can you not breathe so loudly? Do you know the video meme I'm talking about? You get into some where the sound of them breathing, the way that they chew, it just makes you furious. Have you ever felt that in your life? Yeah, that's it there. Yeah, that's is there a video version of that? You got to show the video version. It's just so funny. And that's how people are with Justin Trudeau right now. They're not even listening. The mere sight of him makes them disgusted. His glibness, when he does his, sexy voice, when he does his just the tip voice. Yeah, reading, that's it. Go ahead.
Hey. What's that? So I found this big bin of toys and I'm playing with Leah and showing her all these different animals. And then she's like, come here.
Hello, I need your help.
Go to 11.
No, I can't. Would you come here? Because you need to stop playing toys and come help. You stand here, I have to go ahead. Playing with toys instead of doing his job.
And everyone looked and I got embarrassed. So I went up to the front and I stayed where she told me to stay. Then she went down to aisle 14 or whatever it was and started to check out.
Could you just skip ahead
to
that one line? I just want that one line. Yeah. There it is.
No man's land up in the aisle. She's down checking out the girls' stuff.
I was stressed. I didn't want them to see it.
That's fine. I'm playing with the babies. And then I hear,
hello, we're over here.
You told me to stay here.
Come. This is for going pee potty.
I'm not talking to you anymore.
This is for going pee potty.
It's great.
Okay, you need to pay attention.
No, you need to stop yelling.
Everyone looks at me again like, here's the whipping boy.
Go get the stools first. Line the stools up. Line the stools up here. Not those stools. Standing stools.
Hey, Kate, when are you going to pull the stick out? Because it's getting really annoying.
I didn't hold my tongue. I just said what was on my mind.
She was probably, I'm sorry, can you stop breathing so loud, honey?
I'm sorry. Can you stop breathing so loud, honey? You know, when just everything, the way he chews, the way he says a word, the way he says nuclear, you know, those little things that when you're at that point, you've fallen out of love and you've fallen into hate. And I think in Canada, there were a lot of people who I think were sort of lower information voters who were swept up in Trudeau mania in 2015. Oh, he's handsome. Oh, he's funny. He's got personality. Look, he does a handstand. He dresses up in costumes. He's got that gorgeous hair. And a lot of people sort of had a little crush on him, men and women. And he really emphasized how much of a friend he was to visible minorities. And he called himself a feminist again and again. And so I think he sort of won the affections of people because that's how he campaigned, on emotion, not on substance. So when you're in love with someone, even a little bit, even a politician, and then they break your heart and then they betray you. So for example, you thought he was a feminist, but he fires any woman in cabinet who disagrees with him, from Jody Wilson-Raybould on down. You know, I even have a little bit of sympathy for the most atrocious environment minister in Canadian history, Catherine McKenna. She's so awful, but the way he used her and dumped her at the side of the road. There, you know, Selena Cesar-Chauvin. There is no woman who can stand up to Justin Trudeau without him throwing her out. And then, of course, his sexual assault on Rose Knight. So if you thought he was a feminist, but then you see, like that Jody Wilson-Raybould firing absolutely devastated him, not just with women, but in BC. The blackface. You thought he was an ally to minorities, and then you realize he's been telling black jokes, and not just telling a joke, but he had a whole kit. Like he did blackface in his teens, 20s, and 30s. 3 decades of his life. He was doing the same joke, and he had a little tickle trunk of like a gear, like some people might have a fishing tackle, get the fishing stuff. Okay, here's your hooks, your bait, your wire. You know, it's like get the toolbox. He had a blackface box with the wig, the shoe polish, the prosthetic penis that he wore. Can you get that video? That it was, yeah, that's the one there. He's got a prosthetic penis in there. He's got this whole gear going on. This was when he was, I think this was when he was in his 20s. He also did it in his teens, and he did it in his 30s. This was his go-to joke. Thanks very much. Yeah, people have fallen out of love with him. They don't listen to him anymore. It's like, and he just wants, give me one more chance, baby. Give me one more chance. No, I don't think people are even listening to him. They hate the sight of him. But who else is there? Chrystia Freeland, one of the most unlikable people in politics. Yeah. Hey, I want to do a Rumble ad read. Can you tell me how to do that? Okay, we'll do our own ad and we'll come back. And where would I find our own ad? You know, I'm as you can see, I'm a little bit rusty today. I'm a little bit rusty in my live streaming, but I appreciate your patience. And when we have the audio of David Menzies and Fred Hahn, I want to show that again. All right. Well, thank you for showing that video of Trudeau. I want to get back on track here, folks. I spent too much time on that liar video, but I enjoyed it. While we're looking for the ads, I want to give you a bit of a briefing on the court ruling that we had yesterday. Just want to explain a little bit. In Canada for centuries, there was never a license to do journalism. Journalism is not a profession. It's not like law or medicine where you need a certain professional qualification and there are standards and there are exams and there's malpractice. There's none of that in journalism. Journalism is not a profession. It's an activity that anyone can do. And how do you know you're a journalist? Because you're doing it. Because you tell journalism comes from the French word jour or journal, which means daily, or what you do when you're writing things down on a daily basis. You're journalizing. Now, there are better journalists and worse journalists, and there are some customs in the craft. Spelling. There are traditions to get both sides of the story. That tradition has long gone by in the mainstream media in Canada. Tell me the last time they had the other side of the story on a global warming story. Can you even remember? Has the CBC ever got the other perspective on a global warming story? Of course not. The other perspective on a guns should be banned story? Of course not. The other perspective on Republicans are evil story? The other perspective on conservatives are bigoted? Of course not. So the idea that you get both sides of the story, it's a custom in journalism, but it's not followed by the mainstream media. So who gets to decide who's a journalist? Well, the answer is obvious. Viewers do. Readers do. And the trouble for Justin Trudeau is that as he started to subsidize the mainstream media with hundreds of millions of dollars, the mainstream media became so boring and so partisan that people went elsewhere for the news. And nowhere was that more the case than during the trucker convoy, when they relied on Rebel News and in an astonishing amount. I don't know if I've told you this before, but in the month of February 2022, we had 400 million views and impressions, which is more than the CBC state broadcaster gets on any given month, according to their own rate card. They get about, I think, 360 million a month, and we got 400 million. We were 10% bigger than the CBC. Can you imagine that? So what do you do when people vote with their eyeballs, vote with their clicker, vote, or not even their clicker, vote with their phone? Everyone's watching the news on their phone. How do you stop Rebel News? Well, you pressure YouTube perhaps to demonetize, but that didn't stop us. You say really mean things about Rebel News, that didn't stop us. You try and block us from going to the leaders' debate. We went to court and overcame that. So they invented something called the QCJO, Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, and you had to apply for this. We showed this a minute ago. You had to apply for this status. And you had to apply to the Canada Revenue Agency, which is sort of terrifying. And they had their committee that was handpicked by Justin Trudeau. And they declined giving it to us. And why would I care if I had a government license or not? As you can still see, I'm still broadcasting. So what does it really matter? Well, there's about 4 things that this QCJO status gives you, which I think is wrong. I don't think the government should give or take, punish or reward anyone in the media. I think that's an enormous conflict of interest for them. And more than that, it's an interference with freedom of the press. The first and most obvious thing is it's a kind of journalism credential. If you have the QCJO status, you can get into government press conferences. Well, why should the government credential or not credential journalists? That's outrageous. Even in the aforementioned doctors or lawyers or accountants, members of the profession did their own accreditation, not some hand-picked panel by the Prime Minister. So we're denied access to Parliament Hill press conferences. That's the smallest of it. Here's another thing that matters to our viewers. Every day I do a show at night called the Ezra Levant Show, and it's $8 a month to subscribe. It's not a ton, but still it's $8. If you subscribe to the Globe and Mail, if you subscribe to the Toronto Star, or any other number of digital subscriptions, you get a tax credit for that, but not Rebel News, because we don't have the QCJO status. Okay. Another thing that we would not avail ourselves of, but I think they might be scared that we would be government subsidies. We would never take government subsidies for Rebel News. We never have, we never will. But if we had QCJO status, theoretically, they'd have to share the big pot of dough with us. We wouldn't take that, but they don't know that. And the last thing that I'm most worried about the QCJO status is this. About a year and a half ago, Justin Trudeau nationalized, I forget the exact time, it was in Bill C-11. I think that, I can't remember exactly when that kicked in to be law. I think that actually might have been this January that it was enacted. It was debated before that. I forget the exact date. But Bill C-11 basically colonized the internet for the government. Until that point in time, Canada's media regulator just covered TV and radio. It was called the CRTC, Canadian Radio Telecommunications and TC Commission. I forget the exactitudes of that. CRTC. It's like the American, the Americans have their own FAA, Federal, let's see, Aviation Administration. I forget the American regulator. But Canada went from not regulating the internet to suddenly regulating everything in the internet. Justin Trudeau gave himself the power to regulate the internet. And one of the specific provisions he gave himself under Bill C-11 was the power to order broadcasters online like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, anyone who has video, the power to order them to either boost or throttle any content for any reason. Now, some of the reasons they list include to promote French language stuff, to promote Aboriginal stuff, but they give themselves an unlimited basis to boost and deboost. They call it discoverability. So do you doubt that the government will one day say to YouTube, Facebook, etc., we want you to boost qualified Canadian journalism organizations, but we want you to throttle, hide, deboost, shadow ban those that aren't QCJO news sources because they're trafficking in misinformation. They're fake news. I can see that happening immediately. I can see that happening because Justin Trudeau uses the word disinformation to criticize anyone he doesn't like. So he wouldn't have to pass an order saying ban rebel news. That would be too obvious. A court would be too likely to throw that out. But if Trudeau were to say, hide any news source that's not QCJO approved and boost the rest, boost CBC, boost CTV, boost the Globe and Mail, boost the Toronto Star, but those handful of independents that didn't get the credential, keep them out. That's absolutely what they would do. And frankly, I'm surprised they haven't already done it. So that's the thing I'm most worried about with the QCJO status. So yesterday, I was just shocked to see that the federal court, it's not that they agreed with Trudeau's panel. It's that they thought, we're not going to overturn this expert panel. What's an expert panel? I know what an expert is. Okay, let's say there's a charge of medical malpractice. You did the surgery wrong and it went wrong. Okay, bring in a bunch of top doctors, look at the surgery again, and tell me if there was malpractice. Okay, I would believe that. Is this a terrible doctor or not? But like I said, we're talking about journalism here. And, that's good journalism. That's not good. Says who? 400 million people during the month of February 2022 thought we did pretty good journalism. And by the way, the fact that Justin Trudeau's handpicked committee didn't like us, I don't say they're wrong. That's their personal opinion. A lot of other people do like us. You don't have to like all media out there. It's absurd that there's this panel in the first place, and it's absurd that a judge has gives them the authority. The law gives them the authority. I believe that those well-paid appointees that Trudeau put on that CRA committee that nixed us, I believe they should have the right to their opinion. No one gives a damn about what they have to say. You wouldn't even know any of the names. They're nobodies. A lot of people know Rebel News. Fine. Let them read whatever they read, CBC or the Walrus or some other unreadable crap, and let our people see our stuff, and everyone can choose their own. But no, that's not how it works in 2024. Justin Trudeau wants to be able to kill the journalist outlets that oppose him. I want to talk to you about 1775 coffee. And I would drink it from my mug that says Rebel News on this side. And can you see what my mug says on that side? I don't know. It's Arabic script. I don't know what it says. Something about Hamas. I don't know. I'll have to get that translated. Let me read you an ad for 1775 coffee. Do you enjoy the free speech that Rumble is protecting and fighting for? Let me tell you, I sure do. Oh my God, do I ever. Our show on Rumble is only possible thanks to our viewers supporting Rumble's platform by purchasing Rumble's products. Most of you drink coffee every day. That's why you have to try Rumble's 1775 coffee. It's actually some of the best coffee, and it's the same price as the coffee you buy now, but it is way better. Rumble's 1775 coffee is free from chemicals, yet rich in flavor. This is because their beans are sourced from high-altitude farms in Bolivia, hand-picked, roasted weekly at their facility in Miami, and delivered fresh to your doorstep. And as believers in freedom, buying from Rumble helps fight back against woke corporations like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons. They're the worst. May I invite you to get 1775 coffee instead of Tim Hortons? Go to 1775coffee.com and use the code STUDIO, STUDIO, and get a free month supply of their cognitive boosting supplement Limitless when you buy 2 bags of their coffee. I could use that. I forgot the acronym FEC, FAA, FCC. It was FCC I was looking for earlier. That's a Joe Biden moment. I need some of that limitless cognitive boosting supplement so I'm less Joe Biden-y. I think it's a crazy deal. I think it's a great deal. The supplement itself is worth more than the 2 bags of coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com, but you got to remember to use the code STUDIO. All right, thanks for letting me tell you that ad. I want to read to you a super chat from Ryerson Gary, who says, Quebec MPs Trudeau and Blanchette have the most contempt for anything Canadian. They are now conjoined at the hip and control the country's purse strings. It's going to cost us, folks. Well, earlier we were talking about the polls. Pierre Poilievre is so far ahead. And if you believe Abacus, and I do because they are not pandering to me, people are not going to change their mind no matter what. Justin Trudeau is dead man walking. And I don't know if Mark Carney is anything other than a slicker, richer Michael Ignatieff, former Bank of England governor, fancy pants UN World Economic Forum. Hey, that's where I saw him last. Can you dig up when I bumped into him with Avi Yamini on the streets of Davos? I actually had a friendlier chat with him than I thought. And you know why? Because he gave me 2 answers that I liked, which was really weird. In fact, I was sort of trying to calm Avi down because Avi was going in all fisticuffs. And I was like, I asked him, remember, this was January 2024. This was right after Chrystia Freeland had David Menzies arrested for asking her a question. So he apparently saw that. And I asked him a question about decarbonizing also. Here's Mark Carney. You know what? I shouldn't even show you this clip to make my point because he actually comes across slightly likable here, at least compared to Chrystia Freeland, which is not very hard. Okay, here's the video of me and Avi with Mark Carney. Take a look.
You can't take Mark Carney anywhere.
I didn't do that. I've been all right. How are you?
I got a couple of quick questions for you this evening.
Just arrived, thank you.
Welcome. Welcome to the party. I've been here a couple of days. Only been in 3 fights. Really? Nah, I would never do that. You know me. Listen, I got a question for you. What we got here, we can do whatever. We're the elites of the elites. Here, so let me ask you something. So Justin Trudeau is struggling in the polls there. What would your I guess advice be to Trudeau, because you've got an election coming up at least in the next couple of years?
It's very good of you to follow Canadian politics that closely.
You guys are buddies. Talk to a Canuck. Talk to great. Nice to see you. But seriously, he needs help. He's down 20 points. He has a gender gap. Women are choosing conservatives more than liberals. I don't remember the last time that happened. What advice would you have for the youngster?
Going to a central banker for political advice is never a good idea.
Come on, we know that you're in the line.
I heard you had a meeting the other day with the Prime Minister in Ottawa. Is that correct?
I see the Prime Minister from time to time.
In what capacity, may I ask?
I do a lot of work on climate, as you know. Sure, a big fan of that.
Do you ever register as a lobbyist, or is it just friendship?
Sorry, I don't.
When you meet with the PM on climate, are you there on your own behalf, or are you there on behalf of a company law?
I am the UN Special Envoy on climate action and finance. So,
And what do you make? It's a bitter cold in Canada, down to minus 40s.
yeah, back home in Alberta, it was
And-
minus 40.
And Gilboa is saying go to electric cars. That doesn't work.
In for a week. Well, you've got to have, watch out, you've got to have the full, you've got to have full capacity, right? And you've got to have, one of the things we're going to need to do in Canada, across Canada, and this is, for the benefit of jobs in the country, is build out the grid. You can't switch before you build it out, number one. Number two, one of the things you need, regardless of the form of energy you have, we have, is also to have what's called a capacity market alongside the electricity market.
So you think that Gilboa's plan is a little bit hasty since we haven't done those foundational things?
Well, I think what's important is that, whether it's in Alberta, Ontario, Canada, Australia, for that matter, is that you have to build. You have to build, and it's a time to build. And look, we're in a position where we in Canada are in a position where we have been an energy superpower. We can continue to be an energy superpower. We've always had the ability to develop new sources of energy.
But the PM said there was no market for natural gas. How do you feel about natural gas, especially to relieve Ukraine and other Europeans from Russian gas? How come they're buying Russian gas and Qatari gas, but Justin Trudeau won't let them buy Canadian gas?
Well, we would have to get to build the trains in order to do what called LNG trains in order to get the gas to them. But God, this is a long interview, isn't it?
I'm enjoying it, and I'm doing my best to be fair and friendly.
If this was
the-
Canada, you could have him arrested.
Did you see that? Your rival, Christian
you seen
Freeland,
that?
had one of our reporters arrested.
I think she did. I think
She didn't say a word against it.
On the incident, as you guys know very well, Canada is a rule of law country. Canada is a democracy. Operational decisions about law enforcement are taken by the police of jurisdiction. Quite appropriately, political elected officials have no role in the taking of those decisions. And that's why I don't have any further comment.
It was the wrong thing. It was absolutely the wrong thing.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Look, freedom of the press. I've been a public figure in Canada, been a public figure in the UK. I know you got to answer tough questions, and you guys, you ask tough questions, and that's fair.
Well, I want to thank you for saying that, because I have to say, Christian Freeland has not yet said anything in the vein that you have. She's been happy to let the cops do her work for her. And if she disagrees with the cops, she hasn't said so.
Well, I said what I said. So, but look, the questions you were asking earlier about energy, and I'm going to have to.
Well, thanks for your time. I really appreciate
and I appreciate keeping.
Mark,
Good luck, thanks.
come on. I feel like until next year, no.
Take care. Thank you. He was less defensive than Chrystia Freeland. He was less angry than Justin Trudeau. He actually talked to us. The alternative would be just to walk stone-faced, and I guess he thought that would look worse. He did say he wasn't really cool with arresting David Menzies for talking to Chrystia Freeland, which is more than Chrystia Freeland ever said. And he sort of hinted that maybe Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau were going too recklessly down the zero-carbon path. But make no mistake about it, Mark Carney is very much about the carbon tax and net zero carbon and all that. It's interesting because he's the only name, I think, that would have a chance at the leadership of the Liberal Party. You've got Melanie Joly and Francois-Philippe Champagne and a few others who would want to reach for it. I think Chrystia Freeland would try, but she's so unlikable. I think she's just so weird and smarmy and condescending, and she's an awful communicator in her own way. She's like Kamala Harris. So I think that Mark Carney is smarter than any of them, and he knows how to be cool in a conversation. Trouble is he's pretty much a foreigner these days, and he couldn't be deeper in with the World Economic Forum, Brookfield, and all these other global forces. And I really think that is contrary to the spirit of the times. But I hope he talks to us when we go back to Davos again. Just the other day, we booked our flights and booked our Airbnb, and we're going back to Davos as we always do. I really like it there. As you can see, it's always so cold, and I'm dressed up, running up and down those streets, getting my steps in. It's actually, I think, one of my favorite things we do. All right, well, I think I was a little jumbled and a little distracted in today's live stream, and I apologize for that. But one thing I want to do over is I tried to play for you a clip of David Menzies encountering Fred Hahn, the head of the public sector union, at the counter protest to the parents' rights protest in Toronto. As you saw from our discussion with Alexa Lavoie, the parents' rights protest was a bit of a flop this year. And I agree with her that in a bizarre way, the Gaza war has something to do with it. But here's Fred Hahn, and let's see how it works with better audio, because we weren't getting the audio from David Menzies' mic. We were getting it from the camera involved. So let's see how it sounds, because I want to get that first exchange. I want you to hear it. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's take a look.
Hey, Mr. Hahn, how you doing today? Are you worried about using your cell phone or pager or walkie-talkie by any chance?
Could you get out of my way, please?
Oh, I'm not talking to you, sir.
You're in my way.
No, I'm not. Mr. Hahn, no? Mr. Hahn, given your sexual orientation, how well would you do in Gaza? Or would you stay in the closet in Gaza?
Sorry. Right.
Now, the fact that you are at this counter demonstration, does that mean you agree with sexual? No, you're getting my way, sir. Do you agree with
very much
radicalized sex education for children?
You have a good day, sir. Thanks.
No, don't think so.
Have a good day.
Stop bumping into me, actually.
Oh, I'm walking perfectly.
Okay, then. Mr. Hand, can you answer any of these questions?
Oh.
Mr. Hand?
Whoa, that was very aggressive.
Mr. Hand, why do you think it's proper for you with a public...
All right, we'll show you the rest of the clip later on. We'll post it on Rebel News, but I just wanted to show you. I think we should, Olivia, I think we should just have a very short social media clip of that question about the pager, because I think it's actually really funny. He didn't want to answer it, of course, but I thought it was a zinger. All right, well, do we have any other housekeeping that we should do? I want to tell you about two things. It's September 20th. Now, I'm going to be in Calgary on September 27th for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. They're having their gala award for the George Jonas Freedom Award, and can you believe it? I won it. So we already had an event in Toronto and Vancouver, and if you're in the Calgary area, consider coming by. I'll be there. Look forward to saying hi in person. Go to jccf.ca. And by the way, I'll be talking about the Bill C-63. It's the Online Harms Act, which is yet another censorship law being promoted by Justin Trudeau. We already talked about the QCJO. We already talked about C-11. The Online Harms Act is the latest piece of the puzzle. Incredibly, it actually includes a jail sentence for life, a life jail sentence for the standalone crime of hate. I thought hate was a human emotion. I didn't know it was a crime to feel certain feelings. And I didn't know the law could fix that. We should just pass a Love Each Other Act of 2024 and fix all the world's problems. I want to tell you about two other things I'd like you to consider coming to. On October 5th, so not too far into the future, we're having something we call Rebel News Live. That's also going to be in Calgary. I'll be there, my friend Sheila Gunn-Reid, David Menzies, Drea Humphrey, Alexa Lavoie. They're going to be our in-house talent, but look at who we're bringing with us. We're bringing the Premier of Alberta for a special fireside chat. There's Tamara Leach and others. You can find out about our guests at rebelnewslive.com. It's a pretty reasonably priced ticket. You get breakfast and lunch, and it's a whole day of speeches and fun. But if you want to be a VIP, and I think we've sold about 20 of those already, we have dinner afterwards with the speakers. Now, the Premier won't be there. She has to go. But talk about fun hanging out with Tamara Leach and Alexa Lavoie and Sheila Gunn-Reid, and apologies, I'll be there too. So go to rebelnewslive.com. There still are tickets available. We have a lower price if you are a student or a veteran, and we have a special high price if you're a CBC journalist, and then we have the price in the middle for everyone else. So hopefully we'll see you there. Can you show the price for the CBC? I want to show because the CBC have inquired about this event, and I want to be fair. Click on Get Your Tickets. If a CBC journalist is watching, and they have reached out to us before, so you can see on the top right, it says mainstream Trudeau-funded media pass, $500. I'm not sure if that wording is clear. We should say, we should just take out the word mainstream. Olivia, could you send a note to Mariah? That's just a little bit, just Trudeau-funded media pass. General admission at a special price for those working with a state-funded broadcaster, CBC, et cetera. So it's $500. That's the same price as our VIP All Access Pass, which the CBC doesn't get. General admission, as you can see, is $120, and then we have a student price, et cetera. So I want to let you know we're charging an extra amount for the CBC, and we actually did have one CBC inquiry. They are welcome to come. Maybe they'd learn something. But given how much money they're taking from taxpayers, I thought it would be only fair if they chipped in a little bit to us. After all, we're real journalists. We don't take money from government. How can you even call yourself a journalistic organization if you're on the pay of government? I think that QCJO is sort of the opposite of what it's intended to be. Getting the QCJO journalism license does not prove you're a journalist or a qualified journalist. It's actually literal proof of the opposite. It is proof you're on the payroll. It's proof you bend the knee. It's proof that you meet Justin Trudeau's standards. If you have the QCJO news status, you must be doing something wrong because Trudeau approves of you. Well, my friends, thank you for your time today. I think I'm a little rusty. But I think we got some work done. It was great to catch up with Alexa. It was interesting to see that, the air has gone out of the balloon on that Million March for Kids. It was fun to see David Menzies ask Fred Hahn if he's worried about his beeper blowing up. I'm glad I showed you that mashup Liar Liar clip and a few other things. I'll get back into the habit of it. I'll start doing more of these live streams, and I'll get smooth again. I think I'm a little bit rusty. Anyways, that's our show for today. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.
Right now, I'm standing in front of a massive 47-foot long billboard alongside of Alberta's busiest highway, Highway 2. This thing gets 1.3 million monthly impressions every single month and is spreading the word far and wide about the new Rebel News cruise. So if you're thinking about joining us in June 2025 to Alaska, act now because it's going to fill up fast. We're sailing on the Holland America cruise line, which means you can expect top-notch service and luxury while you're on board. But the real excitement, the special Rebel News only events. So what are you waiting for? Head over to rebelnewscruise.com, check out the cabins, see the details, and grab your spot before they're gone. I can't wait to see you there so that we can spend an unforgettable week with some of the best people on the planet, Rebel News supporters. Let's make 2025 the year we come together, have an amazing time, and keep fighting for truth and for freedom. See you on the Rebel News Cruise. Go to rebelnewscruise.com today for cabins and details. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid.
It's the news event of the year. Canada's most controversial premier sits down with Canada's most controversial journalist, and everything is on the table. Come watch Ezra Levant one-on-one with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in front of a live studio audience in Calgary. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's held back. Questions that would make Justin Trudeau invoke martial law. Answers that will make Stephen Guilbeault pee his pants. You're not going to want to miss this one, but you have to be there in person at the Rebel News Live mega conference in Calgary on October the 5th. Tickets are limited, so drop everything and go to rebelnewslive.com right now. Special discounted prices for Patriots and special extra high prices if you're with the CBC. Go to rebelnewslive.com now.
I'm in Brazil, so I'm using a VPN to get on the internet. What's a VPN? It stands for a virtual private network, and you get around these government firewalls. Suddenly, the president of Brazil banned his whole country from going on Twitter. It was a political censorship news. I've downloaded the VPN from a company called PIA VPN. We've teamed up with them at Rebel, and it's a great deal. I got on the internet really quickly, safely, and even I'm a bit of a technophobe. I managed to figure it out with 2 clicks. And here's the great news. If you go to piavpn.com/Rebel News, not only do you get a big discount, but they pay us a bit of a commission too. Everyone's a winner. Your freedom, your VPN, and a little bit of cash coming to support Rebel News. I'm using it myself to get around the censors in Brazil. You can use it too. That's piavpn.com/Rebel News.
Why should you join Canada's National Firearms Association? We currently have one of the most aggressively anti-firearm governments in our nation's history, promoting fear and placing blame like never before. Our rights, freedoms, culture, and heritage, it's all on the line. But we are fighting back, and there is strength in numbers. We work within the law to change the law, to defend competitors, hunters, collectors, and other law-abiding firearms owners. We can get through this. We've done it before, and we'll do it again, if you are with us. Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.
Here is my kind of passport, folks. Look at this beauty. Introducing a new special edition Freedom Passport. What if the greatest teacher of all time framed his message as a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Inspired by Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, this special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Freedom Passport today at freedompassport.ca. That's freedompassport.ca. All orders in North America come with free shipping and a complimentary song with each purchase.